Hi guys, welcome back to my channel in Tina's Kitchen, where today I'm inviting you over to make something very near and dear to my heart because my heart is a little bit heavy in filming this. However, I do feel that it is a must to share every ounce and every, existence of our culture as we can. And with that said, I want to share a little piece of, my culture, which is, I'm Armenian, and we are currently going, through a huge struggle, through a conflict, a war that has been waged on, our country by Turkey and Azerbaijan. And there's militant forces bombing civilian areas and hospitals and blocking humanitarian aid. And I just feel like every little thing that we can do to preserve our culture is within itself something so special. So with that said, I wanted to make something that is a dish that's very traditional and it's very, like a comfort food. And I feel like in this moment where we're losing so many of our, soldiers, our troops, our young men in this fight, I want to make this in honor of them. And traditionally, sadly, this dish is served at memorials and, after funerals as a very comforting dish. So in their honor, we're going to make khashlama today. And what that is a meat that comprises of oxtail and any type of beef you can find, or lamb, filled with potatoes and onions and tomatoes and peppers, cilantro, every homey comfort ingredient you can find in your fridge or in your pantry, you're going to be using. And we're going to layer this dish on top of each other. Like Armenians, we have so many layers, so this dish in itself is very special in that way. Every flavor is infused layer by layer. So without further ado, I do want to get started on prepping my meat. And in that, I do want to use a pressure cooker to cook my beef once over, and then use that broth as well as some beer. Oh, I forgot to put out my beer. We're going to be incorporating beer in this dish. It just adds this sweetness, and if you don't like too much of that beefy flavor, it does neutralize it. So we'll be adding that too when we're cooking everything throughout. Also, you want to cut your vegetables in a specific way. I'd like to show you how, because in that layering technique, it will allow you to marry all your ingredients together layer by layer. And then I will be using some pepper paste. This is not used, however, I just love some color to my dish. And I have some tomato paste. And again, save a little bit of your cilantro and your dill for the garnish afterwards, because it adds this beautiful green pop of color when we plate our dish and serve it. So I'll meet you soon to cut up all these vegetables and steam cook our broth. Before we get anything started, like I said, we're gonna prep our meat because we wanna cook it once. So when it cooks a second time with all of the ingredients combined, it's gonna be very tender and, melt in your mouth. As a matter of fact, every ingredient here is gonna end up being a very, tender consistency. It's gonna be very melty. So that's really the point. So you can use a slow cooker to that point. But I don't have one currently because I'm not a slow cooker girl. I just like to cook everything on the stovetop, but I've heard that this dish typically responds well to a slow cooker. But we do have a pressure cooker to cook our beef beforehand, so it'll help us some. I'm gonna start with a little bit of water. I would say 2 cups, because we're gonna be adding in beer. The 2 cups of broth and that one, I'm just gonna be using 1 can of beer. I think any beer would work. I'm not really sure, but this is all we had, so we're gonna use Stella. I'm sure you can use any other beer that you have. And then here is the beef. So like I said, we have the oxtail, and I had some type of bone-in beef chuck as well that I'm just gonna be using. We'll just put all that in there. I'm also going to be adding in a little bit of oil to further tenderize. And that's it. We're going to keep it very simple. I normally like to add a lot of other, spices to my beef broth, but because this is already compounded with so much flavor, I want to keep it simple. But I will throw in one little bay leaf to give us some little bit of flavor, and some salt, a pinch of salt, 2 pinches of salt. And that's it. All of these other spices that I have ready will be for when we're combining everything, which I'll be using Aleppo pepper, ground pepper, salt, and I will throw in some garlic, whole garlics, not crushed. And then we'll move this over to the stove, steam cook it, and I'll meet you back to cut up all our vegetables. All right, so I do want to begin with slicing my onion into thicker slices. We don't want to overcook it right from the beginning. We want it to slowly cook, so you want it a little bit on the thicker side, so it takes a little bit longer. So about that thick, like an inch. I would do 2 onions. I only cut up 1, but I think I'll do another, and then we'll just, separate them from each other and spread them nicely, like I said, layer by layer. And then we're gonna move on to the tomato. Again, rounded pieces. Oh, I do want to mention I did skin these. I removed the skin so that it does cook easier, and then when it does cook, you don't get all these little skins everywhere in your dish, so it'll be nice and neat. Lastly, I'm going to be chopping up my peppers. Now, it doesn't matter what type of pepper you use, but I think you need at least a few colors worth. I'm missing my green pepper. I think that's the Bulgarian pepper, but if you have an Anaheim pepper or a jalapeno, that would work. But I do have all these, red and orange and yellow peppers, which will add a vibrant color. So I don't mind that I don't have my green. Plus we have that garnish for the topping. That'll take care of it. So I'll just go through and chop these up. And I don't think these are spicy, so I'll just, go ahead and leave the seeds in. All right, now that we have our vegetables ready, I do want to mention that normally I would have possibly cut my potatoes in half, but because they're so small, I like to leave them in their, intact shape. I'm not going to cut these, just have them individual in the dish. Maybe these bigger ones, possibly, but for the smaller ones, I would rather keep them whole. So I've just peeled them, washed them, and have them ready for once our meat is steam cooked. We can bring it over and combine everything together. All right, so our beef has cooked. It is not fall off the bone yet, but that is our intention for cooking it for about 4 hours when everything is together. So in layering everything, I do want to start off with my bottom layer being my onions, and then a little bit of tomato, just so we get that really amazing base. So with that said, I'll get started with layering with my onions first. I did say you need about 2 onions, so the first layer, depending on how large your dish is, might take up the whole onion. So we'll just go ahead and stack our onions like so. So now that we've layered everything together, we want to go ahead and add in our spices. So I'm going to place a few pieces of bay leaves here and there, not too many, because it is a very pungent leaf and it does already have flavor, and the broth we cooked the meat with already had one in there. So I don't want to overpower. And then we're just going to drop some garlic as well within the dish. And then here is our Aleppo, our ground pepper, and our salt. And I'm just gonna go ahead and layer it in there. And then as well as our pepper paste, I'm just gonna dabble it everywhere. And then when we combine our liquid, it will go ahead and dissolve in. And I'm using about 1 tablespoon. And as well as our tomato paste. So I'll just go ahead and put that in the middle so it disperses around once we add the water. And it already smells amazing, you guys. Okay. And now for the beer, I'll go ahead and pour this in. It's my first time cooking with beer, but I've heard great things, so I'm putting full trust into this Stella. Okay, so along with the beer, my other liquid is going to be the broth from our beef. And we want to cover it all the way through so those potatoes cook as well. Okay, I don't want to add any more water because we have tomatoes in there that already creates water as it cooks. So if we need more water when we're cooking it, we can definitely add in some more vegetable broth if you have it, or even some more water. All right, my friends, so nothing to it, right? Such an easy dish. Just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of patience to eat it because it is going to take about 4 hours to cook. So I will meet you back in a few hours. We're going to taste this beautiful, authentic Armenian traditional dish. And I'm so proud that I'm able to make this with the utmost love for my country and for our heroes and for their honor.